that's really the future of lead gen. I don't think that the leads should ever be marked lost in the future, or it's a dead deal or anything like that. I think the future is really the right now is that AI takes over into an ongoing process to where it's just very mild. And then when the customer does engage, then a human interaction takes over.
What if your next car buying experience felt as easy as scrolling through your favorite app? Welcome to Facts Not Feelings, where today we're breaking down the digital revolution transforming automotive sales. I'm Brooke Furniss, and with us today is Brian Kramer, Executive Vice President of Cars Commerce, who's here to reveal how seamless integration between online browsing and in-store buying is not just possible, but happening right now. Stay tuned as we unlock the future of car shopping. Brian, welcome into the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Brooke. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. I was like going back for a hot minute. The last time we did anything together on the show was the whole metaverse. We did that whole thing, and it was me, I think Wendell, Dusty, and yourself.
And
I think
Jared.
before it was Jared. That's right, Jared. Yep. Yes. It feels like forever ago.
Yeah, it was only like a couple of years ago, and that was a lot of innovation happening really quick.
That was, and we could probably do like a follow up on like things have changed. I was actually just got the new Mac recently. And as I go in, I'm trying to get some other stuff taken care of, and they've all got the Apple Vision on their headsets, and it's just where that from when we did that show a couple years ago to what it is now. It's way, way, way different.
It is, and I think that there was a lot of innovation happening that kind of let up off the gas pedal. It shifted more towards AI, but a lot of those things that we said were going to happen are happening just a lot slower because it's not forced anymore. And COVID, it's like digital retail was making a lot of strides, and all of a sudden it was almost like the industry felt a relief. They're like, oh, okay, we don't have to go through all that digital transformation. We're not ready, because they were being forced to change and do remote deliveries and, do real sight unseen appraisals. And I feel like COVID ended a little bit too soon because we were making a lot of strides and a lot of gains in that period of time.
Yeah, there was a lot that took place during a short amount of time and a lot of different levels, but no, it was like I remember I got my VR headset, the Meta one, and I used it a good amount of times. And then it's like, it currently is in storage right now. Like I haven't touched it since. I was like, man, this was so cool at the time, but I haven't used it since. And they are kind of like, can be a little clunky, but yeah, there was a lot that we did. And watching even back in Germain, how much that you all took, just went full force into it. It was really, really cool to see everything you guys were doing there.
Well, I think that the Meta thing was like an extreme version of it, but a lot of people will sit there and say, well, I'm not going to deliver a car in the metaverse. Okay, but augmented reality and mixed reality is currently a reality. But I think what you're going to see is Google Maps directing people on how to go places. You're going to be, they're saying that glasses will eventually replace the cell phone. And we already see that with the Ray-Ban Metas and the Meta glasses and things like that. But I think that the most important lesson that I learned through all that was how do all the APIs connect? How do you get the plumbing correct so that wherever the technology goes, and I think that's what everybody misses, is that if you can connect the online experience into the showroom experience seamlessly, so that the customer, no matter how they want to do business, if they want to do part of the transaction initially, then come in and then complete the rest of it and just have the vehicle delivered to their house, or or come in and just pick it up at the end. The more of those different decentralized ways that you can do business, the more equipped. It's like when COVID hit, I know everybody was freaking out, and I pulled all the managers into the office and I'm like, look, we've been training for this and building for this. We're already connected. We need to lean into this because this is a huge market share grab for us. And you never know when that's going to happen. But if you don't connect all the aspects of your digital, from the online showroom to your CRM, to your digital retail tool, to your DMS, to your, Route 1 or dealer track, to your tag and title. And I'm talking everything digital, Darwin, whatever your tech stack is. If you don't have that connected in sales and service, you're at a distinct disadvantage. And the reason why we were able to go to Metaverse is because we could deliver a car literally anywhere. It didn't matter where the format was. If somebody wanted to complete it online, if they wanted to do it in the showroom, if they wanted to do it at their house, if they wanted to do it in the Metaverse, our plumbing was set up in a way that we could literally transact anywhere. And I think that's the most important lesson that we learned.
I feel like I know we could talk about this for the entire episode, but I remember just like looking, you were showing me all the roadmap to how you got there. And I was like, this right here is having that process in place to understand, is this going to work or is it not? And you've got to do so much work. And that's a whole other, you guys took on a beast of an animal right there, but it is having all that in there. So I'm going to transition here for a hot second. Is what are the most important and significant barriers dealerships face when trying to synchronize their online and in-store experience? And what are some effective strategies to overcome these massive challenges?
So the number one thing, and obviously I'm biased, with AccuTrade, but the number one thing is the trade. And it's really literally the barrier that starts the whole lead form, the lead generation form. And as as well as anybody, whenever somebody has to fill out a lead, that's a broken process and means that somebody's not able to transact on your website. So it's an error, it's a fumble in my mind. So all we kept doing is trying to reverse engineer the whole process. Okay, where are people dropping? Where are they filling out a lead and raising their hand and asking for help? Because nobody wants to fill out a lead. They want to just keep going, right? And so as we kept on removing barriers, the first one that the major one that we identified, because everybody since 2003 has been selecting vehicles online, but they haven't really been appraising cars online. And when I say appraising cars, I'm talking like with the transactional value, like the way Carvana does it. And Carvana has really, and you see in the share price, they're really mastering it, and they're getting so much better every single time. CarMax in 2020 realized what Carvana was onto, and they doubled their business from 2020 to 2021 in terms of acquisitions, from I think it was 600 and something thousand vehicles to 711,000 vehicles to 1.3 million acquisitions from consumers in 12 months. And because that is the new ad car. Everybody wants to know what they're, it. You were sharing it with me. The percentage of clicks on a dealer's website related to the trade value. If you're not making that frictionless and you're not giving the client what they want, they're bouncing. You and I both see it, and they're going to another website, and it's typically somebody who's giving them a guaranteed trade value. At Germain, when we changed that part of the process and we allowed the client just to self-service and appraise their vehicle with a guaranteed offer, it wasn't just the appraisals that skyrocketed, 465%, I think is what the number was, but it was everything that happened after the fact, the amount of hard credit pulls versus soft credit pulls, because the clients were in a different transactional mode. And they were literally just kept going. They were uploading their driver's licenses, their insurance cards. They set appointments 26% of the time, which was more than a third of our sales staff was able to do. So with no, interruption, they would just schedule their own appointments. And I think that's what a lot of dealers don't realize, is that it's like the law of reciprocity. When you give the client information like that, and it's digital trust, that digital trust comes back, and it comes back in less negotiation on the vehicle they're selecting. Filling out, to get their credit pulled, because they're not going to keep shopping a bunch of different dealers, because they're now choosing to trust to deal with you. And it's not just a straight up linear path. Well, I'm not going to give them the trade because maybe I'll leave them $500 on the table or $1,000 on the table. That's the dollar, stepping over dollars to pick up pennies, that I think that the industry needs to really change their thinking about.
So I'm going to go off script here a little bit, but that you bring up a really good point about the range versus exact trade value. And I hear a lot of, well, we can't give an exact trade amount because all they're doing is taking our number and then going to our competitors, and then we're losing the deal. I'm just curious your thought process on that.
Well, if that was the case, then Carvana and CarMax wouldn't acquire any vehicles, right? And what we find is that once you give them that number, that's what causes them to stop shopping. I remember, when I first got in the car business, which was a very long time ago, the Oldsmobiles were out then. And my father used to take me looking for vehicles down Cicero Avenue, and we would go to 7, 8, 9 dealerships in the course of, a weekend. And when I started selling cars in 94, the first thing they said is, give me the worksheet. You need to make sure that the client's committed to buying it. I had to get them to write, if terms and conditions are agreeable, Miss Furniss will take delivery now with big NOW. And then you had to sign it. And they're like, what am I signing? Well, this is just to show that you're serious. And we would go back and forth to get this, that way we had a committed buyer. And if you weren't committed on a vehicle in stock and you wouldn't sign that form, then you weren't going to get a price. Now, it might sound crazy today, but it wasn't crazy back then. It's just the way that it was. And we were forcing the customer to shop all these different places. Well, that's what we do whenever we give a range, is the customer doesn't have closure in their mind. And what I find, and I see the verbatims on, 100,000 appraisals, instant offers that we do at cars.com a month, the clients don't expect us to be the best price on every single one, or the local dealer. They just want you to be close. You got to be in the hunt in order to have a conversation. They just want to make sure they're not being taken advantage of. When you're giving them a range, well, two things. If somebody else is willing to give them a guaranteed value, it's just too easy to go get the number from somebody else, which is why the average for every 100 cars sold in the United States from a franchise dealer this year, 43 of them have a trade. The number should be north of 70. So if it's only 43%, it's because not everybody's getting that information and there's too much friction. So like, okay, I'll just go get it from somebody else who will. That's the first thing. The second thing is I find that the dealers that won't give an exact number, it's because they're not confident in the process when the client actually comes in. So they're being conservative and they're giving themselves room. So when the customer comes in, they have somewhere to go and they go, well, what about that higher number? Well, that was just a guesstimate. We were trying to, and immediately the client trust is dissipates. The ideal way to do it, just like an ad car or something else that you're doing to drive traffic, because trades are the number one traffic generator, is to be as aggressive as you possibly can. That's what Carvana and CarMax do. And then have confidence in your entire staff that they can do an active trade appraisal because you trust them, you enable them, you empower them, and you know that they're going to execute every single time. It's like having a service drive and only having 2 people that can write customers up and having some really long line. That's what most dealerships or one F&I manager for a whole dealership. That's what most dealerships are running their used car departments with appraisals.
And that just brings up like the whole technology portion of it. And I see too often that we have a dealership will have one trade-in appraisal tool on their website. Then their DR tool has something else. And then, because they're getting some kickback, we're going to have a third. I'm like, you understand that you've just made that journey for the consumer that much more difficult. And it is it's not seamless anymore. And I'm trying to think of a different word than seamless, but you've made it's a very, very difficult. Wait, I got this price over here. I got this price over here. And if I go to your group store, you have another one. So what's the real price that I'm getting on that? So my question to you is, like, with all the technology out there, what essential tools should dealerships implement to ensure that smooth transition from online interest to in-store sales?
So obviously I'm biased towards AccuTrade, but even if you're not using that, whatever you use, you should only use one tool.
Yeah.
And, for A, save yourself the money, but B, I would rather have a bad process that gets violently executed than a great process that's sporadic and it's inconsistent. And while, some do this and some like to do this, and whatever you're going to do, just plant your flag and commit to something, even if it's not my product. Because simple trumps everything else. I mean, simple wins in every scenario. And there's a lot of, obviously I like technology, but I've also seen people winning that have no technology, that have the most basic, simple stack, but it gets executed relentlessly with a ton of focus. And there's, a lot of attribution, a lot of focus. And what they do it so exceptionally well. I think that a lot of dealership websites dilute their, site speed and those things better than I do, but you put too much stuff on your website and it ends up looking like, Tropicana Boulevard in Las Vegas. It's a sensory overload. The client's looking for something that's simple, that guides them right in it to where it's effortless and they just flow right through it. And even if it's the worst trade tool on earth, I would still rather just have one tool than have a couple with the, great tool out there.
It is like, and there's like, obviously I live and breathe data and reporting and all that in between all the, all these little data points that I look at. And it is crazy to me. Like when I go, wait, I don't even know what's firing right now because you have 3 digital retailing tools on your site. You might not know you do, but you do. They've got these 2 other things over here. I'm like, so you just made it so difficult for me to complete what I want. I just want to buy the vehicle. Why are you making it that difficult for me? Like, I understand that we are not a typical e-commerce industry. So the OEM is going to mandate that certain things have to be on the site, which is going to slow it down. It's going to be way different than an Amazon, because Amazon is Amazon. They own their own stuff. So there are stuff that have to be on there. That being said, when I look and see, like, I could go on a whole like 2-hour rant on this one, but like there's like 15 banners on the side. I'm like, you understand the banners get clicked on like less than 1% of the time, but we're going to put them on there. Or you got, I mean, it's just all over, but really do yourself a favor and go through as a consumer, do a study group to understand like, hey, what are the consumers going through to understand like, oh, wow, this actually really sucks. And it makes it really difficult. And we're throwing around terms that most people wouldn't know about. So with the data portion of that, how can dealerships effectively use the predictive analytics to anticipate customer needs based on their online behaviors?
Well, like a Dealer Inspire, we're going to take a look to see what percentage of the time do people click on each button. So if they're clicking on those banner ads less than 1% of the time, then obviously we're going to coach the dealers. Why are you going to give up that real estate? If you're giving up 20% of your real estate for 1% of the time, that's a bad mix, right? It's like paying 20% of your ad budget for something that closes 1% of the time. You would never do that. But people do it all the time to just more is better. And they think that, and if I'm back in retail, I would deconstruct and it's like that Elon Musk philosophy, right? For every one thing that you add, you should be taking 2 to 3 things away. And that's the problem, is that people don't ever take things away from their mobile site and their desktop sites. And they don't, because it's not just the one. And I always used to get into arguments with my staff, and they would be looking at everything on their desktop. And I'm like, look, I'm trying to schedule an appointment right now on the service, website. Well, it works fine on here. Well, those are 2 different sites. Now, my team didn't always know that, or didn't know why one was cluttered and one wasn't. But I would not be looking to add anything. I would be reinventing and looking to remove as much as I possibly could.
I just forgot the name of the law, but it's where the more choices you're given, the longer it takes for you to make a decision. I just totally spaced the name of it, but there's an actual scientific
Occam's razor.
There we go. Yes. And so the more choices you give someone, the longer they're going to take to make the decision. So why would we do that? And you're just going through this. I'm looking at there's 17 CTAs on a side. I'm like, you're just making it so much more difficult for the consumer. All they want to do is buy a vehicle. Why are we making it so hard for them? It shouldn't be this difficult. So I know this is something obviously you're really, really good at, whether it's at Cars Commerce, whether it was at Germain, when you're at the dealership, wherever it may be, you're selling cars. But when it comes to training staff, how to handle that hybrid online and in-store, how do you go about doing that to make sure that they're fully trained, but also have the tools in their tool belt to complete everything?
So that's something that we're working on until 2025 with Cars Commerce. It's actually one of the big rocks on my to-do list, is to come up with a panel to like a mastermind group in order to tackle that. I can only speak to what we did at Germain Toyota at this point, and hopefully scale it. But we celebrated small wins like that every single week by pointing out not so much what was going on our website, but talking about different consumer experiences. So on Saturday mornings, most everybody, we would go around and say, how many appointments do you have? How many cars did you sell yesterday? Where are you after the month? And do that real quick and roll call. But then we'd highlight a couple wins, salesperson of the month, the first week in the month. But then we'd roll into who's got a great customer service experience story from the week. And it was always, I started off online, bought something from the Apple store. When I showed up, they were already waiting there for me. Or I was going to go pick up my kid from elementary school, and they actually met me there because I was going to be in car line for 45 minutes. They tracked me down. I told them where I was going to be, and just, unbelievable customer service, or even just little things like at Starbucks.
Yeah.
And talking about it. And then we, as they're saying that, you also would bring up to the whole team, what does that look like if that person doesn't go above and beyond at the light? What's that story sound like today? If you go pick up your Starbucks and your stuff's not there and they don't know why, and they started saying, well, I don't think you ever put the order in, or started getting argumentative with you, or they don't show up and they're like, well, the manager should have told you we don't go to cars in car line. That's against our policy because you've had a physical address or location. There's always the antithesis of great customer service, and reminding, and it's not a once a month, or it has to be like an every day, every week, constant communication about delighting guests. And because what you're talking about with connecting the dots, it doesn't matter how they come to know you. If they started off as an online customer, if they start off in the showroom, then they go online. They're, like you and I have talked about this ad nauseum, but you should look at it if there's a remote deal and you do every step of the sale. Can you select the vehicle? Can you demo? Can you appraise a car? Can you get a credit app? Can you do all the documents? Can you a sales menu, F&I for a in-store? Obviously, everybody can do that. Online, how many of those things can you do 100% virtually? And then what if the customer wants to cross paths, right?
Mhm.
And they want to meander into different spaces whenever and wherever they want to do it. Whoever is able to master that and have a map to be able to demonstrate that with a visual so that the staff can experience that and see what that should look like. I think that's one of the biggest roadblocks, that most people aren't able to visualize that in their head and they haven't seen it. So they're skeptical that it's even a possibility.
Well, and going back to COVID, I mean, digital retailing became a massive buzzword. It had been around for a long time, but all of a sudden we're like, oh, we've never heard of this before, even though all of us have. But you saw this, I see now that so many have just said, yeah, we don't need it anymore. And I understand where they're coming from. I also understand how consumers work. Are they the chances they're going to go A to Z is very, very small, but be able to say, I want to go A through M and then pick it up there. Yeah. I mean, we'll go back to the Starbucks experience. Because we are so trained, I was joking with a friend that was in town. I go, does anybody actually go to Starbucks and order anymore? Or because everything I do, even though it's literally a block away from me, everything's gonna be ordered. That I happened to go in one time, not my normal one, it was a different one. And I sat and waited from the time it said it was supposed to be ready. It was another like 15 minutes. And I was like, frustration levels were getting, I'm like, but this is like first world problem. I understand it, but I'm so used to like not having to worry about if this is ordered, more or less be like, oh, you know what, you got to go back in line. Or the people that were here in line, even though you ordered yours 20 minutes ago, we're going to make theirs first. Like, whoa, what happened here? But we are so accustomed to that. But if we're going to go down that road, are we truly having that seamless and succinct experience?
And we were just working with a Ford store up in DC, and I see pockets of this across the country, right? I don't see it as frequently as I wish, but the dealership that I was working with up there, I would say 85, 90% of their deals are already their digital retail deals. And they had the same problem that I had at the Toyota store, where people are so programmed on that you don't have enough people to wait on the fresh ups, because they'd rather have, I mean, I don't think many people think about this, but when you have somebody and you have it all dialed in and you have your systems and they're not disjointed, you don't have to copy and paste out of this system into another system, and the APIs just flow, like a symphony. When you have that dialed in like that, now your salespeople get spoiled because their credit apps are getting filled out correctly and the customers are doing it. Their trade appraisals are getting filled out correctly. 80% of their paperwork is getting filled out. So when the customer comes in, they're ready to roll. So they're already at the bottom of the funnel. And when salespeople start getting spoiled like that, that's when they all start selling 15, 18, 20 cars a month, like clockwork. And I think that a lot of people don't make it over that initial hill because it's painful, the change management and getting people to do things differently than they've always done it. But what it looks like at the end, and I can tell in 2 seconds when I walk into a dealership, what those dealerships that are like that, you can just feel it. And then some people would sit there and say, wow, it's hard to get somebody to wait on me. The receptionist is typically always on point, but you can see that everybody's doing something. They're all on the phones. They're all being busy and they're being productive, and they're generating a lot of results without as much busy work or any huddles,
Amen. Yeah, it is. And that's something that I wish I saw more of, the productivity portion versus I was at a store once and I'll just call them Brooke words that were thrown at me when I asked hey, I asked for something to be done. And I was told a few choice words, and it was all because they wanted to be on TikTok. It wasn't for the store, just personal TikTok. I was like, so you have time to be on TikTok and do just scroll dancing movies and the dancing things, but not help a customer? Like, I was really surprised by it. I was like, wow, that is I don't think I would be okay with that as an owner. But you do see that. And on the flip side is you do have that process dialed in. It's, hey, even though you can still do the social media because that's generating the sales for you and bringing in customers. I totally understand that part. But understanding how that process works of, hey, they're starting from here to here. Hey, they're halfway through. How can we best approach that customer and to keep the customer satisfied? I mean, at the end of the day, is the customer happy?
There should still be a prioritization on that, because I had that same issue. So I just followed Disney's 4 keys to success,
Mm-hmm.
safety, courtesy, show, efficiency, so that everybody knows the priority. And then what you're talking about is not any of those 4, right?
No.
A lot of times people are emailing or texting, or worrying about something like putting a PTO request or something when there's a customer right there. Well, courtesy and greeting that customer trumps being efficient or responding to an email or sending some, administrative compliance thing or something like that. Right. So,
Yeah.
and show is, how does everything look around the dealership? If there's a soda can that's, sitting on the curb, or there's some trash out front, or a McDonald's bag that's, right in front of the showroom, it needs to be thrown in the trash before you go and return that email. And I think that a lot of GMs and managers and BDC managers are guilty of, office managers, controllers are guilty of making people efficient when they should be courteous, or they should be worrying about, how everything looks. And I don't think that there's enough clarity around that, not just in the showroom, but you'll like this on the website, and trying to be efficient on chat and things like that, instead of worrying about the placement of things and how in the customer journey online.
Amen. Yes, to all the above. I'm just going to say amen to everything that you just said. So we're talking about consumer behavior. It's constantly evolving, as we both know. What new customer service approaches should be dealerships adopt, both online and then obviously in the physical store itself, to enhance satisfaction and loyalty?
Well, I think one of them, and obviously I keep going back to this, and you call me biased. I think everything, and I always have, revolves around the trade. So keeping clients updated so they don't have to leave your ecosystem, and making sure that they're informed every single time that they come in for service, having some method of communication with them if they want to get a number for their trade. And a lot of people say, well, they just bought the car 6 months ago or 12 months ago. Well, just so you know, Carvana Value Tracker, Carfax is already giving it to them when they're in your service department, and you probably don't even know you signed up for it, but it's at the bottom of every follow-up. So if you don't give them that number, somebody else will. So that's one of the, having a service drive acquisition program is one of the stickiest ways to have retention and to stay in front of your customers. I think that that's really the future of lead gen. I don't think that the leads should ever be marked lost in the future, or, it's a dead deal or anything like that. I think the future is really the right now is that AI takes over into an ongoing process to where it's just very mild. And then when the customer does engage, then a human interaction takes over. So, but there's no sense with all this long-term follow-up and birthday emails and all these things that we know that people don't really do anyway, or they just automate and they just hit the button, or say they called these customers on the 3-year anniversary of buying their car call that don't ever get made, and just let AI take care of that. Because I think that, like we were talking about with the efficiency, when people get into that efficiency mode, they're like, oh my God, I got 68 tasks or 128 tasks. And they're just turning into these CRM zombies.
Yeah, they are.
And the AI needs to release them of that so that they can I think AI is going to bring back the humanity in this world, so that you can actually just have face-to-face interactions, because you know that the follow-up is happening and you're only dealing with the people that really want to be spoken to at that time. And knowing who that is, AI, that's the role of it. So, I mean, I know it sounds elementary, but AI should do all the follow-up except for when a customer raises their hand and they say they want more information, which is really, I think, all the salespeople want anyway.
Oh yeah. Could not agree more. And this is something there are people that are that sector of people that are all for this. Was great. Obviously, you and I are both all for AI. You still need that human interaction for sure. You still need the human writing the prompts. Like, there's a reason why the prompt creators are getting paid so much money. Like, you still need the human in that. That being said, is like when I look at a BDC and I say, wait, so let's just say you're sending, 5 texts per customer per day, and how many leads you getting in a day? That times it by the week, times it by the month. Do you really need to be sending all those text messages? No, you don't. Have AA follow up with that. Or if it's an email, same thing. Like, I remember back in the day of Conversica, and then what was it? Ferret something. That was like the first AI. What is it? I'm totally
Ava. Was it an automated virtual assistant?
There was that, but then there was the Ferret something. I can't remember the name of it. But anyways, like that was our introduction, I'll say, to AI. And it is obviously exploded since then, but understanding what works best with your process. Do you want it more for answering your text message follow-up? Do you want it more for email follow-up? How do you want it? And then from there, saying, okay, at what point do we want the human interaction to jump in? And please do your research on that to figure out, hey, what tool, what service is best for us? Because there are some really, really great tools out there, but it's got to integrate with the systems that you have currently, or you're just creating more work for yourself. But it's.
And you got to have a champion, I think. I think that's
sure.
the next future is for marketing, CRM, somebody who is there like Overwatch or a sniper for a military operation to sit there and catch things and teach it and train it. You know, Josh James at Germain Toyota is doing that now. And he's been tweaking and, teaching it for over a year, where now, and every single time that it reaches out to me, I almost bought a car from that AI tool the last day of the month when I was out in Vegas. I got so far that I was almost about to renew my daughter's lease, and without any human interaction, because it's gotten so much better.
Well, I remember as Kevin Fry was talking, it was one of the many times he was speaking, and he got this discussion about American Express. And I was like, I love American Express because, I had an issue with my credit card, had to get a new one. And he goes, the entire transaction, he goes, the chat, I know for a fact it was not a human, but yet it felt human. And I got the entire thing, got a new credit card, and it was shipped out to me. He just went through all the different steps. He goes, but understanding that they've also perfected that, and they're going to continue to perfect it to have it that I can work with the consumer and not have to have, versus other times you're just yelling like, representative or whatever it may be. But when you really have
on hold for 14 minutes.
Oh my gosh. It just happened literally before we started recording today. I have Google Fiber internet here. I was on the phone for 40 minutes and I got passed to 4 different people. I'm like, Google, you are Google. This should not be this difficult. And I just kept getting past her and I was like, I have to have internet. This is kind of a big deal. But that's like, at that point, like I'm so frustrated that I'm like, I'm trying not to take it out on the next.
You would have happily dealt with AI.
Oh, 100% would have. But I was like, and even like when the AI asked for my zip code, so I provided my zip code. It's like, we don't have an account for you. I was like, yes, you do. Like, I can tell you, I just paid you guys, so I know there's an account there. But like perfecting that, perfecting and refining that AI as much as you can, as quickly as you can, because it is changing so quickly. But 100%, I would have much rather dealt with a bot than to deal with the lack of. And then there's the language barrier. I mean, that was multiple times. The guy was very nice. I'm like, I go, sir, I cannot understand you. And I'm not like, do what you got to do. It was just, I'm like, this is so difficult versus having an AI that can just translate everything in whatever bot language it wants to translate. But it does, it makes it.
That's why my digital retail tool, Germain, a third of the customers set an appointment more than the salespeople did.
Yes, exactly. I see these numbers all the time. I'm like, when it's a DR tool or some type of chat tool that brings in DR, those numbers or close rates are so much higher. It's the customer gets exactly what they need. And there's no friction there.
No, and there's no biases, opinions, pre-qualification.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Brian, I could talk to you forever about all of this, plus like AI and Facebook and everything in between. Let's be honest, I could talk to you about everything. But I just want to first off just thank you for everything you're doing. It's been always such a pleasure to get to know you and to know more about what you're doing and what you've done at cars.com. But we are at that point of the show where we're going to jump into the lightning round with you. So for those that are watching, you can see his QR code below here. But those that are listening to podcast land, how can they get in touch with you and how can they find you?
They can find me on YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, at Brian Kramer. You can email me at bkramer@cars.com. Find me on Linktree at Brian Kramer.
Yes. Send the QR code. If you scan it, everyone, if you scan it below or you click on the link, that's going to take them to his Linktree and you will have every way known to mankind, I think, short of a smoke signal to get a hold of this gentleman. So definitely get in touch with him. And you're usually speaking at a bunch of different places as well. Like, let's be honest, you're everywhere.
I'll be at NADA.
All right.
Not going to make auto rate,
you will be at,
unfortunately.
Okay. All right. So NADA, do you guys have a booth? I know that dealerinspiredcars.com. Where's your guys' booth?
It's right next to Ford and General Motors. Okay. Just kidding.
There you go. Fantastic.
We're in the middle.
I love that I say that because it's like, what's your booth number? I'm like, no one knows what booth numbers are. No one's like, oh, I should go to booth 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where I'm going. Like, no, just happy you'll find it. All right. So the name of the show is Facts Not Feelings. So whether it's in your personal life or your professional life, how are you separating facts from feelings?
Really just with data. And I'm very curious and I tried in a very disciplined way to even if I disagree with somebody, like ranges on trade values, I'm very curious to understand why people look at things the way that they look at them without being judgmental, because the only way that I'm going to be able to understand, to be able to show them it from a different perspective, is to understand first the way they're looking at it. And I didn't used to do it that way.
I agree. And it is like there was a recent thing event recently, and I was on the impression XYZ, and I would there's no way it's going to be over here. And once I did my due diligence, I was like, man, I have to now eat my words, because in my mind, I'd prejudged the situation when in fact it was not even that at all. But it's a good learning experience for me. I'm glad I didn't say the quiet voices in my head. I'm glad those words didn't come out, because I would have made me look like an idiot. But I did find it out. But I just take the time to understand where that person's coming from and the reason behind it. There may be a logical reason for it, and maybe it's just that's how they're raised or whatever it may be. But okay,
in some cases somebody will want more leads, and I'm like, well, why do you want more leads? Whereas before I would just say that makes no sense. Why would you do that? And you have to hire more people. But they're trying to please somebody else politically within their organization whose pay plan is tied to that. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad I asked, because I was about to say a lot of things that probably wouldn't turn out well for me.
So the question is, when you get those more leads, when I see dealerships, they'll go from quantity of leads to quality of leads, and it drops off. I go, so you're closing more, but you still want more of those crap leads, more or less. Yes, we do. I go, but you don't close them. You're closing at less 1%, but you want them. Is that what I'm hearing? Yes, we do. Okay.
That's a fascinating thing for me. I found the same thing.
Yeah. I'm like, but okay, so let's talk about this for a while. Or then they start getting more leads, but they're not closing them. I go, so you wanted more leads, you got them, and they're still quality leads. But when I go in and I can see the process in-house needs some loving, there's just needs some loving. So which is it? Do you want more leads? You don't want more leads. You can't have both. But I know you want more.
Staff for it.
Yes, we don't have the staff for it. Our process in-house is not ideal. So all that money we're spending to acquire the customer is just getting lit on fire. So I don't know about that, but okay, I'm just here to protect the name of the building, as it turns out. So I don't care who you use. I just, all right, we'll roll with it. So, all right. So what is one thing that most people wouldn't know about you?
That I used to own a nightclub.
Nice.
In my former life, actually, while I was selling cars, but I don't think I started off as a lot porter. I owned a nightclub with a baseball player named Mo Vaughn.
No, are you serious?
Realtor? Yeah.
Yeah, that is so cool. Good old Mo.
Well, it was cool for a minute, and then it wasn't cool.
Not so much.
It was a lot of fun, but that's a rough business.
Yes, it
rough
is.
On your soul.
Yeah, I've had a couple of friends that own nightclubs, so I've heard some fun stories, to say the least.
There were some really fun stories, and then there were some not fun stories. It's kind of like one of those movies where it's like everything's great on the way up, and then it starts coming down, Scarface.
It comes down hard.
That's right. That's what happened.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for being a part of the show, for enlightening everyone on not only just the car industry and our incredible industry we are, but what you're doing. I mean, I always have looked to you just like a beacon in our industry, but to say, oh, we're doing this. And I know we've all joked about, if everyone just was given the Brian Kramer playbook, it wouldn't be the same experience, because it's you. And I don't say that just because you're across the screen from me, but it is. Everything you do, I'm watching what's transpired since you've run into the role with cars. It's just been really cool to see. So thank you for everything that you do, and just being you, man. I super appreciate it.
Appreciate you, bro.
All right, everyone. You know the drill. Oh, NAD, yes. Well, and NAD is just around the corner. We're like a couple weeks away, so hopefully we'll see everyone there. And with that, everyone, find a way to serve today. You know the drill. Find a way to serve. Just be the joy and light in someone's day-to-day. Make their day just a little bit better. Whether that's opening a car door, whether that is a kind smile, just do something to better someone's life today. With that, everyone, we'll see everyone next week, and we'll see everyone in NADA.